On his way home with grocery bags, he caught a little alien girl staring at them. Tier 3 side lane sat between two main corridors, narrow and clean, lit by a single strip of white along the ceiling. Air vents hummed behind metal panels, pushing a steady current of cool, dry air. The floor had that faint chemical smell of a recent wash. No advertising screens, no shop fronts, just service doors, junction boxes, and a row of numbered access hatches. Cale Ivers walked down the center of it with two grocery sacks cutting into his fingers. The bags were heavy and pulled at the tendons in his hands. Plastic containers shifted against each other with a dull knock every other step. Warmth bled through the right bag where the box of street food rested. Corra-Spice grain wraps with shaved meat and char vegetables, still hot from the stall. The smell followed him, a solid layer of roasted fat and spice under the cooler air of the lane. He had finished his shift at the Nutrient Flow Authority an hour later than planned. A shipment report had not matched the registry numbers. He had stayed to fix it because that was what he did now: track food load for the colony, match figures, close gaps before anyone up tier complained about shortages. It was quiet work. Numbers, routes, schedules. No alarms, no weapons, no civilians packed into failing airlocks. He preferred it that way. His boots made a flat, even sound on the floor plates. His posture stayed upright, weight balanced. Each time he reached an intersection or a door, his eyes checked it automatically before his feet arrived. Anyone watching closely would see the habit: a quick scan of corners, a measuring glance at shadows. Old orbital peacekeeper training, still sitting in his muscles years after he left the service. He cut through this lane every third evening. It shaved 3 minutes off the walk home. The cameras at each end faced the junctions, watching traffic count, not faces. It was quiet enough that he could let his shoulders drop a little. He turned in and felt the temperature fall by a degree. The hum of the main corridor faded behind him. Halfway along, near a cracked utility pillar, one ceiling panel glowed slightly dimmer than the others. It had been that way for weeks. Maintenance crews had marked it low priority, functional, not worth the parts. Today, something else occupied that patch of shadow. At first, he saw only a shape pressed against the pillar. Then his eyes adjusted, and details emerged. A small girl stood with her back flat against the cracked metal, feet bare on the cold floor. Strips of old clothing had been tied around her in layers, different fabrics, all worn thin and colorless from repeated washing in cold water or no water at all. The cloth left her arms and knees exposed. Her skin was violet purple, faintly reflective under the ceiling light. Her legs were too thin, joints showing clearly. Long white hair fell down past her shoulders in tangles, catching what little light the dim panel gave. Her face looked younger than her body. Round cheeks had thinned out, and the hollows under her eyes were dark. She was not watching him. Her stare was fixed on the lower half of his body, on the sacks swinging at his side. Cale's steps slowed. The knock of containers inside the bag changed rhythm. When he came fully into the darker patch of the lane, the smell from the hot box swelled. Corra-Spice, baked dough, rendered fat. The girl's throat moved as she swallowed. She did it without looking away from the bag. He recognized the look. Not greed, not simple hunger. A locked, intense focus that came from watching something you needed while trying not to draw attention to the fact that you needed it. A woman in a work uniform walked past at the far end of the lane, talking into her wrist unit about shipment delays. Her boots clicked fast on the floor. Her gaze slid past the pillar without slowing. She never turned her head. Cale watched her go, jaw tightening for a heartbeat, then loosened his grip on the bags. He stopped in front of the pillar, leaving a careful distance between them. The girl's shoulders tensed the moment he halted. Her fingers dug into the seams of the metal at her back. Every part of her looked ready to bolt. He felt the old familiar pull in his chest, the one he had tried to avoid for years. The line between walking past and stepping in. The last time he had crossed in uniform, a pressure seal had failed and half the deck had vented. He had left the service because of that night, because numbers were easier than faces. He had promised himself he would not try to save anyone again. He set the grocery sacks down on the floor. The straps left pale marks on his fingers. His palms burned. He flexed them once, then raised both hands away from the bags so she could see he was not reaching for her. "Evening," he said. His voice sounded steady. It was a little lower than usual because his throat had gone tight for a second and he had pushed his breath through it anyway. The girl lifted her gaze to his face. Her eyes were silver with a thin violet ring around each iris. Up close, he saw small lines at the corners, more from strain than from age. She looked like she had gone a long time without choosing when she slept or ate. She did not answer. Cale lowered himself into a crouch, slow enough that his coat did not swing wide. He bent both knees, set one hand on the floor briefly for balance, and came down until his head and shoulders were closer to her height. Less looming, less threat. His boots stayed planted where she could see them. He opened the nearest sack with one hand. Heat moved up past his fingers. He felt the plastic flex under his knuckles, then release. He reached in and lifted out a container, popped the lid with his thumb, and let the steam rise. The smell hit stronger. Warm flatbread, rich meat, spices that pricked the back of the nose and tongue. Her eyes dropped to the food, so fast it might have been a reflex. He watched the corner of her mouth. It trembled once, then flattened again as she forced it still. "I bought too much," he said. "This is one wrap. You can have it." He transferred one wrap to his hand, peeled off the thin, insulating film, and held it out with his palm up. The bread sagged under the weight of the meat. Bits of charred vegetable clung to the edge of the filling. The girl did not move. Her eyes flicked up to his face and back down to his hand, measuring. "What do you want for it?" she asked. Her voice was rough, sandy, like her throat had gone dry from breathing cold air too long. She sounded tired, not weak. There was nothing pleading in the way she asked. It was a transaction check. "Nothing," he said. "That is not real," she said quietly. "Nobody gives food for nothing. There's always something. A favor, a mark, a place you have to go after." He thought of all the times he had watched people on damage stations sign away things under stress. Rations, work hours, entire contracts. He understood why she asked. "You can eat it here and leave when you are done," he said. "I do not follow you. I do not say your name to anyone. There is no list with your signature on it. You owe me nothing for this one." Her fingers twitched where they gripped the pillar. "If there is a camera," she said, "they will see me take it from your hand. And then it is a rule I do not know yet." He glanced up. The nearest camera was at the mouth of the lane, lens turned toward the main corridor. The next one was behind them, facing the opposite direction. This dead patch in the middle sat between both cones. "No camera sees this spot clearly," he said. "This is one of the reasons you stand here, I think." She froze. He had called out what she had discovered herself, probably after trial and error. "How do you know that?" she asked. "I used to work on ships where cameras were the only things that saw trouble early," he said. "I know where they look and where they do not. This lane is for crates, not people." Her eyes narrowed, reassessing him. "You are one of the orbit soldiers," she said. "The ones that came to the colony when the fighting started up tier. They say you were good at knocking people down without leaving marks." Her wording was blunt. Rumors always were. "I was a peacekeeper," he said. "That is over. Now I count boxes full of food and send them where they need to go." "Then why are you in the quiet lane?" she asked. "Because it is faster," he said, "and because I like a walk where no one is shouting into my face." He kept his hand out. The wrap stayed there, steam thinning. She looked at it one more time, then took a small breath that shook in the middle. "If I take it and run," she said, "do you chase me?" "No," he answered. "If I take it and stay," she said, "do you decide later that I owe you for that too?" "No," he said again. Her shoulders dropped a fraction at the second repetition. Not much. Enough to show his answers were getting through. She stepped away from the pillar. Her bare feet moved over the floor with almost no sound. She kept her body slightly turned, ready to pivot and push off if he shifted. When she came within reach, she extended her hand. Her fingers were thin and cold when they wrapped around the warm bread. The joints were too prominent. Her nails were short and uneven, broken from catching on metal edges. He let go as soon as she had a firm grip. He did not close his hand over hers or change his posture. She retreated to the pillar again before she risked a bite. She lifted the wrap, brought it to her mouth, and took a careful piece from the edge. She chewed slowly, eyes closing for a moment. Muscles in her jaw worked hard. When she swallowed, she made a small sound in her throat, like the food had scraped its way down because it had been too long since she had eaten something solid. The second bite came faster, bigger. By the third, she had shifted her stance, free hand braced against the pillar behind her, as if she needed the support to keep from falling forward into the food. Sauce ran down onto her wrist. She paused, glanced at him, then leaned down and licked it off in one quick movement, almost apologetic, like she expected to be told to stop. He looked away, reached into the bag, and adjusted another container that did not need adjusting. He stared at his own hand for a few seconds, listening to the sound she made, tearing bread, chewing, swallowing. He did not count the bites, but he felt the pace in his chest. When the wrap was gone, he heard her breathing change, a little steadier, still rough. He closed the bag and looked at her again. She held nothing now. Her hands were empty, fingers curled slightly. A smear of breadcrumbs clung to the corner of her mouth. She wiped it with the back of her wrist. "You really did not take any," she said. "I had my share earlier," he said. The truth was he had skipped the canteen meal to get out of the building faster. It was a small lie to balance out the fact that she had eaten something hot while his stomach stayed empty. He did not care about that part. She eyed the remaining containers in the bag. "Why do you have that much?" she asked. "I live alone," he said. "If I cook once, I eat twice." She frowned at that logic, but let it stand. He decided not to let the moment drift away. He had learned once that hesitation had a cost. "What is your name?" he asked. Her face changed at the question. The muscles around her mouth tightened. Her shoulders rose again. "Why?" she asked. "Because I'm talking to you," he said. "And I do not like saying 'hey you' to the same face twice." She stared at him for several seconds. Her eyes moved across his features, checking for amusement or malice. She saw neither. "Kyra," she said at last. "That is what my mother used to say when she wanted me to wake up. I have not heard it for a long time." He registered the past tense. He did not push. "Kyra," he repeated. "I am Kale." She tried the name on her tongue. "Kale," she said. "Why did you stop?" "Because I did not like the idea of you standing behind a pillar and watching food go past your nose until someone else tripped over you," he said. "That happens," she said. "Sometimes they shout. Sometimes they pretend they did not see it, so they do not have to share." He believed her. "Where do you sleep?" he asked. She glanced up, then down the lane. "Here," she said, "or under that pipe where the water drips warm. If I curl small, the floor feels softer." "How long have you been on Tier 3? He asked. "Long enough to know the cleaner schedule," she said. They do not like it when someone is still wet when they come with their machines. Long enough to know which door smells of cooked meat and which one smells like boiled socks. Long enough to see you walk this way 3 times and never look up. That last line landed with more weight than he expected. She had been tracking him. He had not seen her. He felt a flash of shame, quick and sharp. His stomach tightened. He thought he had been paying attention in this lane. Obviously not enough. "Then this is the first time I did it right," he said. She snorted softly at that. "What now?" she asked. "You gave me food. Your conscience should be lighter. You can go home and sleep. I can go back to the pillar." He could. That would be the clean break. No more weight on his file. No more risk on his door. No more chances to repeat old mistakes. He saw the alternative too clearly. One more person he had seen and left behind. He picked up the bags. "I'm going home," he said. "It is a small unit on this tier. Warm air. A door that closes. I have more food and a spare bunk. You can walk with me and stay the night if you choose. No paperwork. No promise beyond tonight." Her eyes widened. "You want to take me inside?" she said. "Yes," he said. "Why?" she asked. "Because a child sleeping on a floor plate is not something I'm willing to walk past anymore," he said. "I have done enough of that in other uniforms." She studied his face with open suspicion. "If I go and you change your mind," she said, "do you shout and throw things and tell me to get out?" "If I change my mind, I will tell you calmly and walk you back here," he said. "I will not throw anything." "You say that now, when you smell of meat and your bag is full," she said. People say softer things when their hands are heavy and their stomachs are full. Maybe, he said. You can test me when my hands are empty. She looked down at her feet. What if someone sees me with you? She asked. They will think I belong to you. She snorted softly at that. What now? She asked. You gave me food. Your conscience should be lighter. You can go home and sleep. I can go back to the pillar. He could. That would be the clean break. No more weight on his file. No more risk on his door. No more chances to repeat old mistakes. He saw the alternative too clearly. One more person he had seen and left behind. He picked up the bags. I'm going home, he said. It is a small unit on this tier. Warm air, a door that closes. I have more food and a spare bunk. You can walk with me and stay the night if you choose. No paperwork. They will come to your door later and say word from rules I do not know yet. They will take me to a room with other beds and tell me which corner to stay in. He thought of the processing dorms. Long rows of bunks, rotating staff, noise at all hours. He had never stayed in one. He had walked past them during inspections, listened to the sound from behind the smart glass, and kept going. If anyone comes to my door, they will talk to me, he said. You can stand behind the table and eat while they do. If they want to move you, I will make them say why to my face. She frowned. What is your mission now? She asked. You're not a soldier. You are not a rescuer. You're a food counter. People like you are supposed to care about numbers, not extra mouths. My mission is to make sure the colony does not run out of meals on any given tier, he said. Tonight, that includes one person the system is not counting. She fell quiet at that. He turned away from the pillar and took a step toward the end of the lane. He did not look back. He did not reach for her. He heard nothing for 3 heartbeats. Then bare feet touched the floor behind him. A soft patter settled half a step off his right side. He adjusted his stride without thinking, leaving space for her to move. They emerged into the main corridor again. Lights sharpened. Voices from the market area reached them as a low mix of chatter, vendor calls, and the metallic ring of cooking tools. People passed in both directions, most focused on their own paths. Kyra kept close enough to Kale that his coat almost brushed her shoulder. When a pair of teenagers cut across their path, laughing and shoving each other, Kyra flinched. Kale shifted his body so his frame took the near side. The boys brushed past and kept going. Kyra looked up at him briefly, then straight ahead again. At the residential section, the sound softened. Door panels glowed beside each entrance. The floor looked even cleaner here, edges of the corridor lined with narrow drainage channels. Someone had placed a small potted plant outside one door, leaves glossy and still. They reached his unit. Kale tapped his wristband to the panel. The door slid aside with a quiet hydraulic hiss. Warm air moved out to greet them. It carried the smell of cleaner from that morning and the faint trace of boiled grain from the previous night's meal. The lights inside were set to a low evening level, soft and steady. Kyra stopped just outside the threshold. Her toes sat on the border strip. Her body leaned forward a little, as if pulled, but her heels stayed rooted in the corridor. She looked into the room. It held a small table with 2 chairs, a compact kitchen unit with a built-in cooker and water tap, a wall bunk that folded up when not in use, a narrow shelf with 3 changes of clothes and a single folded blanket. A worn jacket hung on a hook near the door. No clutter, no extra furniture, no decorations beyond one small print of a coastline he had never seen in person. It is too neat, she said. It looks like a room people show to prove everything is fine. It looks like a room where one person works late and collapses on the bed without thinking about where the chair goes, he said. She kept her eyes on the interior. If I walk in, she said, there will be marks from my feet on the floor. Hair on your blanket. Maybe crumbs from my hands. You will know I was here. You will not get to pretend you imagined it later. That is correct, he said. Her fingers gripped the door frame. Are you sure you want that? She asked. He thought of the mission that had gone wrong. He thought of the names on a casualty list and the way he had read them twice, then folded the screen away and requested transfer to a desk job. He also thought of this lane and the fact that she had seen him 3 times before he saw her once. I am sure, he said. She listened to his tone, not just his words. Something in it must have sounded solid enough. She took a step forward. Her bare feet touched the interior floor. The seam under her toes felt different, slightly textured for grip. Her shoulders rose as the door slid closed behind her, sealing with a soft click. She turned her head quickly, checking the panel. "Can I open it?" she asked. From inside, "You press there," he said, pointing to the manual release. "It will open without my band." "So you're not the only one who decides," she said. "No," he said. "You are not trapped here." She nodded slowly. He carried the bags to the counter and set them down. His fingers ached, the deep, dull kind of ache that promised stiffness in the morning. He shook his hands out once, then opened one container. Steam filled the small kitchen area, thick with the smell of chorus spice, cooked grain, and meat. He pulled out plates, set them on the table, and split one wrap in half. Kyra stayed in the middle of the room, just out of arm's reach from anything. "You can sit," he said. "Chairs are for that." She moved toward the table like she was stepping onto a thin sheet of ice. She pulled the nearest chair out by a few centimeters, watched to see if anyone reacted, then eased herself onto it. The metal creaked softly under her weight, then settled. She sat with her back straight, hands on her thighs, muscles tight. He put half a wrap on her plate, then pushed the rest of the container to his side. He placed a cup of water in front of her. "If you're still hungry after that, say so," he said. "We will sort it out." She glanced at the plate, then at him. "If I eat too much and you change your mind about me, do you take it from tomorrow?" she asked. "No," he said. "If I have less tomorrow, I will eat less. That is not your problem." She stared at him for a moment, then dropped her gaze and picked up the food with both hands. Her shoulders loosened by a small degree. He watched her take the first bite at his table. He planned to keep things simple. A bed, steady meals, clear rules, and space for her to remember what it felt like to be a child instead of a problem. He would guide her through the steps she needed to feel safe enough to stand on her own feet again, even if she did not see the whole path yet. For now, it was just one decision in a quiet room. He would not walk past her again. The apartment stayed quiet after Kyra finished eating. She sat with her hands around the empty plate, eyes lowered, still adjusting to the idea of being indoors. The warmth of the room wrapped around her thin shoulders, but her posture stayed tight, as if she expected someone to open the door and undo all of it. Cale cleared the table without rushing. The metal plates made soft clicks as he stacked them at the sink. Water hissed through the tap as he rinsed them. He kept his movements steady so she would hear the sounds of normal routine. Nothing sharp, nothing that signaled impatience. Kyra watched him from the corner of her eye. "Do you always eat alone like this?" she asked. "Yes," he said. "Most nights." "Why don't you eat at your job?" she pressed. "It's loud," he answered. "People talk about things that don't matter, and I've had enough noise for one lifetime." She absorbed that, then looked away again. He finished washing the dishes and dried his hands on a cloth. When he turned back, she was inspecting the folded bunk panel on the wall with cautious curiosity. Her fingers hovered over the release latch. "You can pull it down," he said. "It won't fall on you." She hesitated, then pressed the small latch. The bunk released with a muted click and lowered on its hinge until it rested horizontally. The thin mattress inside had a clean fabric cover, pale gray, unmarked. Kyra touched the mattress with 2 fingers first, testing. Then she pressed her whole hand down, surprised by how soft it felt compared to the floor plates she was used to. "You said someone else lived here before," she said. "Were they important to you?" "No," Cale said. "It was just the standard unit they assigned after I transferred. I kept the basics. Didn't add much." "Looks like nobody added anything," she muttered. He didn't argue. She wasn't wrong. She sat on the lowered bunk and let her legs dangle. Her feet didn't reach the floor. The movement made the mattress shift under her, and she tensed immediately, gripping the edge. "It isn't going to tip," he said. "It's bolted to the wall." "Everything out there moves," she said. "Pipes shake. Doors kick when people slam them. Lights crack sometimes. Nothing stays still for long." "This one does," he said. She nodded, but her eyes stayed alert. Cale stepped to the narrow storage cabinet near the kitchenette and opened the top shelf. Inside was a spare blanket rolled neatly. He took it out and handed it to her. "It's clean," he said. "I washed it last week." She accepted it with both hands. The fabric draped over her arms, heavier than she expected. She rubbed a corner of it between her fingers. "You don't care if it gets dirty?" she asked. "It's a blanket," he said. "It's supposed to get used." A small reaction flickered across her face. Relief mixed with disbelief, but she shoved it down quickly. Her gaze moved to the door. The seal lines glinted under the ceiling light. Her breathing changed slightly, faster for a few seconds, then leveled out. "You keep looking at it," Kale said. "What? If someone comes and starts saying rules I don't know," she said quietly, "I need to see them before they touch me." "No one will touch you in here," he said. "You can't know that," she replied. "I can control who crosses that door," he said. "You're safe tonight." She looked away, not ready to trust the words, but not rejecting them either. Kale stepped back to the counter, opened one of the grocery sacks, and took out the sealed cup of Froland seed coffee he had bought earlier. The cup still held a little warmth. He drank a slow mouthful. The bitter flavor grounded him. Kyra watched him drink. "Why did you bring me here?" she asked again, voice steadier this time. Not the food reason, the real one. Kale leaned his hip against the counter, cup in hand. "I've walked past too many people I couldn't help," he said. "Tonight I saw someone I could." Kyra blinked once, processing that. "You don't even know me," she said. "I know you've been alone long enough for your body to show it," he said. "I know the way you washed the bags meant you weren't just hungry. You were starving quietly. That's enough for one night." She pulled the blanket around her shoulders, more like armor than comfort. "People usually tell me I am trouble," she said. "Or that feeding me means I'll never leave." "You can leave whenever you want," he said. She lifted her chin slightly. "And if I don't want to leave? Then we figure things out," he said. Her eyes narrowed again. "Testing. Always testing." "You say that like you've already decided," she said. He took another sip of coffee. The heat hit the back of his throat. "I decided when you stepped toward the food instead of running," he said. "That told me you still have fight left. People with fight can rebuild." She sat very still at that, as if the words reached deeper than she expected. A soft tapping came from the ventilation panel, just metal contracting from the temperature shift. Kyra jerked at the sound, shoulders jumping, then forced them down. Kale let the silence sit for a moment. "You jump at noises because you've had to," he said. "That's not your fault." Kyra stared at her hands. "I don't want to cause you trouble," she said. "If someone asks why I'm in here, what do you say?" "That you're a guest," he said, "and that it's none of their business." "You think they'll accept that?" she asked. "They will if they know what tone means. I'm not debating," he said. Her lips twitched, the closest thing to a smile she'd shown. "You talk like someone who didn't always count food," she said. "I didn't," he answered. She waited, expecting more. He didn't add anything. She respected that. Kyra lowered herself slowly onto the bunk, curling the blanket over her legs. The mattress dipped slightly under her weight. She lay on her side, facing the wall, clutching one corner of the blanket. Kale dimmed the ceiling lights a few levels. The room settled into a warm amber shade. He moved to the doorway of the small corridor that led to his own bunk. He didn't close the door. "If you need anything, say my name," he said. "You don't have to shout." Kyra rolled on her back to see him. "What if I wake you?" she asked. "I'll wake," he said, "and I'll listen." She watched him for a moment longer. "You're not scared of having someone here?" she asked. "I'm more scared of what happens when nobody steps in," he said. Kyra pulled the blanket tighter around herself. The room stayed quiet long enough that Kale thought she might fall asleep. Then her voice came, softer, almost unsure. "Kale, what time do you wake up for work?" "A little after 6, he said. "If I'm still here in the morning," she asked, "am I allowed to eat again?" "You're allowed to open the cabinet and take what you want," he said. "Just leave some for me." She nodded to herself, as if that rule made things feel more stable. Kale stepped toward his room, but her voice stopped him again. "Kale, if I scream in the night, do you come right away?" "Yes." "Even if you're dreaming?" "Yes." She let out a small breath and turned her face into the blanket. Kale stood there for another second. He watched the shape of her under the covers, small, tense, trying to relax against instincts that had kept her alive. He walked to his bunk, but kept the door half open so he could hear the slightest sound from the other room. Kyra lifted her head once more before settling. "Thank you," She whispered, not confident, not practiced, but real. Kale rested his hand on the doorframe. "You're safe tonight," he said. "Sleep." Kyra closed her eyes. The apartment stayed still, holding two people who had not shared a room with anyone in a very long time. Kale woke before his alarm. A faint sound reached him first, something small shifting in the other room, fabric brushing against fabric. The apartment was dim. The ceiling lights were still on their night cycle. He sat up slowly, listening. No panic in the sound, just movement. He swung his legs over the edge of the bunk and stood. His feet found a cool floor. For a moment, he let his hand rest on the wall, steadying the leftover tension from sleep. He checked the corridor. Kyra was awake, sitting cross-legged on the lowered bunk, the blanket draped over her shoulders like a cloak. She looked toward him, but didn't speak until he stepped closer. "Did I scream?" she asked. "No," Kale said. "You were quiet." Her shoulders eased a little. She tucked her hair behind one ear, revealing the faint line of an old bruise that had nearly faded. "I heard the pipes rumble," she said. "It sounded like someone walking." "Morning cycle," he said. "They push hot water through the main line at this hour." She nodded, as if filing the information for later. Kale crossed to the kitchenette. He took out a small pot, filled it with water, and set it on the cooker. Kyra watched each action, eyes following the pot, the switch, the small blue flame. Her stomach growled once, sharp and clear in the quiet apartment. She froze. Kale didn't react. He opened the cabinet, pulled out 2 sealed portions of grain porridge, and set them on the counter. "You said I could eat in the morning," she said, almost cautious. "You can," he replied. "Pick whichever one you want." She slid off the bunk and approached the counter. Her bare feet made soft taps on the floor. She reached for the darker colored packet, but stopped. "Is this one more expensive?" she asked. "About the same," he said. She picked it up only after hearing that, turning it in her hands like she expected a catch. He opened his own packet and stirred the boiling water into the grains. The scent rose slowly, a muted, earthy smell with hints of dried berry. Kyra held her porridge bowl close to her chest while he carried his to the table. She followed, but didn't sit until he did. She took one cautious spoonful, blew on it, then tasted it. Her eyes blinked quickly at the heat, but she kept eating. Her movements were quick but controlled, as if she forced herself not to devour it. Between bites, she glanced around the room, studying things she hadn't dared to look at last night. The coat hook, the folded chair in the corner, the charging port near the floor. Small objects normal to any home, unfamiliar to her. "Do you work every day?" she asked. "Most," he answered. "You leave early like this?" "Usually." "Will someone come here while you're gone?" "No," Kale said, then added, "No one has a reason to." That seemed to matter to her. She ate slower after that. When breakfast was done, Kale rinsed the bowls and set them to dry. He checked his work tablet, the day's tasks already loading. Supply confirmations, tier route adjustments, a flagged request from the upper decks. Kyra stood near the table, toes curled against the floor, watching him dress in his coat. "What do I do while you're gone?" she asked. "Whatever makes you feel safe," he said. "Stay inside. Rest. Eat. If you want to clean up, there's a wash unit through there." He pointed to the small sliding door near the bunk. She stiffened instantly. "I won't lock it," he added. She didn't move yet. Instead, she looked at the door panel of the apartment. "If someone knocks," she said, "do I answer?" "No," Kale said. "You stay quiet. And if they say your name, you still don't answer." She nodded, committing the rules to memory. He slipped his tablet into his coat pocket. When he reached for his boots, Kyra shifted her weight, hesitated, then spoke again. "Are you coming back?" she asked without looking at him. "Yes," he said, fastening the boot clasp. "You sound sure." "I am." She pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders. She wanted to believe him. He could see the conflict in the way her fingers gripped the fabric. He checked the time. He was already running later than usual. "Kyra," he said, "walk with me to the door." She approached with small steps. He pressed the panel, and the door slid open. The corridor outside was quiet. Morning cycle had barely started. No neighbors were out yet. Lights along the floor glowed faintly. Kyra stood behind the threshold, not crossing the line. You don't have to stand here all day, he told her. You can lie down. Eat. Use the wash unit. Nothing in here will hurt you. She lifted her eyes to his face. You say things like you're used to making people calm, she said. I've tried to, he answered. She gave a tiny nod, not quite trusting but no longer resisting. I'll be back mid-shift to check in, he said. You don't have to, she replied quickly. I know, he said, but I will. He stepped into the corridor. Kyra didn't say goodbye. She just watched him as the door began to slide shut. For a second, her hand twitched, like she considered reaching out. Then she stopped herself. The door sealed. Cale walked down the corridor with a new tightness in his chest, something he hadn't felt in years. Responsibility, not the enforced kind from his old missions, but the kind that came from a choice he made alone. Halfway to the lift, he slowed. He realized he had not asked her a very basic question: how long she had been living in the service lanes, whether she had anyone left, whether she had ever been registered. It struck him then how carefully she avoided speaking about the past. He would have to let her bring it up on her own time. In the lift, he tapped his wristband against the panel. The doors closed, and the hum of descent filled the space. On the other side of the colony, Kyra stood in the apartment, gripping the blanket, listening to the soft mechanical noise fade with his absence. The room felt larger now, quieter, unfamiliar but not dangerous. She took one step toward the wash unit, then paused, checking the door panel again to make sure it still obeyed her. It did. Only then did she close the wash unit door halfway, not all the way, and step inside. Cale reached the Nutrient Flow Authority, flashing his ID at the entry scanner. He walked through the busy loading bay, the scent of reheated transport crates hanging in the warm air. People greeted him with quick nods, nothing more. He moved toward his station, but his mind stayed on the small apartment and the girl sitting inside it. He knew what he intended now. Not just feeding her, not just offering a bed for one night. He planned to walk her through the steps she needed to regain her footing one quiet day at a time. Whether the colony approved of it or not, he would not walk away from this choice. Cale returned during mid-shift, as he'd said he would. The corridor outside his unit was quiet. Only the low hum of the ventilation grid broke the silence. He scanned the door panel. No alerts, no forced entry warnings. Still, his pulse picked up. He pressed his wristband to the sensor. The door slid open. Kyra sat on the floor near the table, legs tucked under her, hair damp and brushed back. She wore the oversized off-white shirt he had left in the storage cabinet. It reached her knees. Her feet were bare, toes curled slightly against the warm floor plating. The blanket lay folded beside her, neater than he expected. She looked up quickly, checking his expression before deciding how to react. You came back early, she said. I said I would, he answered, stepping inside. She glanced at the clock on the wall, doing the math on his timing. When she saw he'd cut his break short, her posture tightened a little. You left work early because of me, she said. No, Cale said. I left because I wanted to make sure you were all right. She absorbed that in silence. He noticed something new on the table, an empty ration wrapper. She caught his look and spoke before he could ask. You said I could eat, she said. So I did. One only. I didn't want to take too much. That's fine, Cale said. She shifted her weight, uncertain. I cleaned, she added, pointing at the tiny sink. Only the parts one understood. I didn't touch anything with lights. The sink was spotless. The counter had been wiped down. Even the floor around the table was smoothed with clear hand marks where she'd scrubbed with the blanket before folding it again. Cale crouched beside her. You don't have to earn your stay here, he said. You're not on a contract. Kyra dropped her gaze. I didn't want you to think I'm lazy, she said. People don't keep lazy ones. I'm not people, he replied. She didn't answer that, but her jaw unclenched. Cale looked around the room. The wash unit door was half open, just like she said she'd do. Her old fabric strips were gone. He found them hanging neatly over the wash rail, still dripping from being scrubbed in the sink. She tried to clean them, even though she now had clothes that fit better. You didn't have to wash those, he said. They're mine, she replied. Even if I never wear them again, I don't want to leave them dirty. He understood that. Keeping the old didn't mean expecting to return to it. It meant not letting it control her. Cale stood and walked to the kitchenette. He took out 2 small containers from the cooler, sliced root meat, and reheated grain. The smell filled the apartment, rich, savory, grounding. Kyra inhaled subtly, then looked away as if embarrassed. "You haven't eaten enough today," Kale said. "Sit at the table." She slid into the chair with careful movements, watching him assemble the meal. We set the plate in front of her. She hesitated. "Are you eating too?" she asked. "Yes." "Good," she said quietly. "It's strange when one person eats and the other doesn't. Makes it feel like I'm stealing from you." He sat across from her. They ate in silence for a moment, the scrape of forks the only sound. Halfway through the meal, Kyra paused and tapped the edge of the table. "I heard footsteps earlier," she said. "Outside your door." They stopped, then walked away. I didn't move until it was quiet again. Kale put down his fork. "Did they try to open the panel?" "No," she said. "Just stopped long enough to listen." "Did they say anything?" "No. It might have been a neighbor," he said. "People move around during shift breaks." She studied him, checking if he believed what he was saying. "You're not worried?" she asked. "I'm aware," Kale corrected. "If I worried at every footstep, I'd never sleep." Kyra considered that, then nodded slowly. After they finished eating, Kale cleared the plates. She rose automatically to help, but he motioned for her to sit. "There's something I didn't ask yesterday," he said. Kyra tensed. "It's not about your family," he added. "You tell me that when, or if, you decide to." Her shoulders lowered by a fraction. "What then?" she asked. "How long were you living on Tier 3 before I found you?" Kyra looked toward the dim corner near the door, thinking through the timeline. "I came down 2 tiers a few months ago," she said. Tier 1 patrols were harsher. Tier 2 had too many eyes. Tier 3, people don't look long if you stay in the shadows. "You survived alone?" Kale asked. "I didn't take space," she said simply. "I slept where machines wouldn't crush me. I moved when the floors got cold. I ate when someone left food too close to the drain." Kale felt the air shift in his lungs. Anger at the system, not at her. The colony counted crates more carefully than children. "Has anyone tried to take you in before?" he asked. "One woman tried," she said, "but she wanted me to work for her. Carry things, clean her unit. Said she'd feed me if I didn't cause trouble." "Did you go with her?" "For a night," Kyra said. "She locked the door from the outside. I left when she slept. Took nothing." Kale nodded once. That filled an important gap. Why? Kyra questioned every offer, even simple ones. "This place isn't like that," Kale said. "We'll see," she answered, not defiantly, just honest. He respected that. Kyra shifted in her seat. Her hair fell forward in a damp curtain, and she pushed it back with a small, impatient motion. "You said you used to be a peacekeeper," she said. "Why did you stop?" Kale rinsed the dish slower than necessary. "There was an extraction mission," he said. "Civilians trapped behind a pressure seal. We misjudged the structural damage. The lock failed. We didn't reach them in time." Kyra's expression changed, sharper, more focused. "How many?" she asked. "Too many." She didn't speak for a moment. Her fingers gripped the blanket folded beside her. "You think you failed them," she said. "I did," Kale replied. "But I'm trying to fail fewer people now." Kyra absorbed that as if she was weighing something inside herself, whether she counted as one of those people he wanted to save, or whether she was an exception he'd regret later. She stood from the chair, walked to the wash unit doorway, then back again without entering. Restlessness showed in the small circles she walked around the room. "Do you want me to stay here again tonight?" she asked. "Yes," Kale said. "Even if someone hears me move around? Even if they ask questions later?" "Yes." She stopped moving. "And what about tomorrow?" she asked. "Do I still stay here?" "For now," Kale said. "One day at a time." "What if I want more than one day?" she asked, voice steady. "Then we talk about it," he said. She stared at him, trying to find whatever contradiction she expected in his answer. When she didn't find it, her shoulders eased. She went to the bunk and touched the clean blanket he'd given her last night. "I didn't dream," she said, almost in surprise. "That's good," Kale said. "I don't know if it'll happen again." "It doesn't have to," he said. She sat down on the bunk and drew her knees up. "What do I do if someone knocks tomorrow when you're gone?" she asked again. wanting the reassurance repeated. You stay quiet, Kale said, and you don't open the door for anyone, even if they say they're looking for a child, especially then. She nodded, grip tightening on the blanket. Kale checked the time. He would need to return to work soon, but he didn't move yet. Kyra looked up at him. If you hadn't walked through that lane yesterday, she said, would I still be there tonight? Yes, he said, but I'm glad I walked through it. She breathed out slowly. Not relief, not trust, just a little less tension. When Kale finally stood and reached for his coat, Kyra didn't flinch this time. She watched him put it on, fastening the collar, checking his wristband. You'll be back again, she said. Yes, he answered. He opened the door. She didn't run to the threshold or cling to it. She stayed on the bunk, watching the entrance with steady eyes. Kale, she said before the door closed. He paused. Thank you for not leaving me today. He nodded once. I'm not planning to leave you tomorrow either. The door slid shut, and for the first time since he found her, she didn't look afraid of being alone inside the room. Kale returned later than planned. Even before he reached his door, he noticed the difference. The corridor was too still. No footsteps, no passing voices, no hum of conversation drifting from neighboring units. Tier 3 usually grew livelier around this hour, but now the hall sat in a strange pocket of silence. He stepped closer, scanning the panel. No alerts again, but something in the air tightened his shoulders. He pressed his wristband to the sensor. The door slid open. Kyra stood in the middle of the room, not sitting, not hiding, standing. Her posture was rigid, her hair pushed back unevenly as if she'd been pulling at it. Her eyes flicked to him the instant the door opened. She didn't speak right away. What happened? Kale asked, stepping inside and letting the door seal behind him. Kyra swallowed hard. Someone knocked, she said. He moved closer. When? Maybe an hour ago. She pointed toward the door panel. 2 knocks. Not loud. Not soft. Did they say anything? No names, she said. Just waiting. Kale exhaled slowly. Not relief. Calculation. He studied the door, the panel, the floor around it. No marks, no forced entry. A curious neighbor, maybe someone passing by, or someone who saw a small shadow behind him earlier and wanted to confirm what they thought they saw. Did you stay quiet? He asked. Yes, she said instantly. He looked her over now that the shock had settled from her voice. Her hands were cold. He could see the color difference along her knuckles. She must have stood frozen for a long time. He crouched, so he wasn't towering over her. You did exactly right, he said. Kyra tried to steady her breathing, but her shoulders lifted with each inhale. I thought, she cut herself off, then started again. I thought they came for me, or for you, or that they'd ask you why someone like me is here. No one is here, Kale said. You're safe. She didn't relax. He scanned the apartment again. Nothing disturbed except one thing. The blanket she'd folded earlier lay on the floor, half open, as if she'd dropped it when the knocks came. He picked it up and handed it back to her. She took it with stiff hands and held it close. I stayed away from the door, she said. Like you told me. I didn't breathe loud. I didn't move. I didn't even swallow for a while. That's enough, Kale said. He stood and walked to the kitchenette. He opened a storage drawer, took out a container of heated root broth, and set it on the counter. The rich, earthy smell spread through the room. Kyra's gaze followed the movement, but she didn't sit. Kale softened his tone just slightly. Come eat. She stepped forward slowly, settling into the chair with careful movements. Her hands trembled as she lifted the spoon. He sat across from her, watching the way she forced herself to eat despite the leftover fear tightening her throat. You said you'd be back mid-shift again, she said. But you weren't. I got pulled into a meeting, he answered. I couldn't leave without raising questions. She absorbed that answer, not accusing but noticing. So they can keep you, she said. Tie you to a desk. Then I'm alone. Not permanently, he replied. I got back as soon as I could. Kyra looked down at her bowl, hair falling over one cheek. I thought maybe you'd change your mind, she said. I didn't. You sound sure again, she said softly. I am. She took another spoonful, slower this time. Kale rested his forearms on the table. Kyra, if I ever have to return late, I'll tell you in the morning. That way you'll know before it's quiet. Her eyes stayed on the bowl, but she gave a tiny nod. What did you do after they left the door? Kale asked. I stayed there, she said, listening, counting my heartbeat until it slowed. Then I moved to the wall so no one could see my shadow under the door. Good thinking, he said. She blinked, not used to being praised for survival instincts. After she finished eating, Kale cleaned the dishes. Kyra stayed near the table, blanket around her shoulders like a shield. Kale, she said. You said I'm safe here. But what if someone keeps knocking? Or asks why you keep your door locked every hour? He dried his hands and turned toward her. I handle anyone who comes to this door, he said. Not you. She studied his face carefully, then asked the question she had been avoiding since last night. What happens if someone from the authority asks about me? Kale took a moment before answering. Then I say you're under my care for now. Can you do that? She asked. Without a paper? I can, he said. And if I need to make it official later, I will. Kyra's breath caught. Just once, just a small sound, but she quickly hid it by pulling the blanket tighter. You would put your name next to mine on a record? She asked quietly. If it comes to that, Kale said, I won't hesitate. She didn't speak for several seconds. Kale rested his forearms on the table. Kyra, if I ever have to return late, I'll tell you in the morning. That way you'll know before it's quiet. Her eyes stayed on the bowl, but she gave a tiny nod. What did you do after they left the door? Kale asked. I stayed there, she said, listening, counted my heartbeat until it slowed. Then I moved to the wall so no one could see my shadow under the door. Good thinking, he said. She blinked, not used to being praised for survival instincts. After she finished eating, Kale cleaned the dishes. Kyra stayed near the table, blanket around her shoulders like a shield. Kale, she said. You said I'm safe here. But what if someone keeps knocking? Her throat worked as if she wanted to say something but couldn't find the shape of it. Instead, she asked something simpler. Can I sleep in a bunk again tonight? Yes, he said immediately. She nodded once, but didn't move toward it yet. Kale stepped toward the small cabinet and opened it. I picked something up on my way back. Kyra's eyes widened slightly. Surprise, not excitement. He pulled out a small hairbrush. Dark handle, soft bristles. Nothing expensive, but new. Kyra stared at it as though it didn't belong in her world. I noticed your hair was hurting your neck, Kale said. You can use this, or leave it. Your choice. She reached out, hesitant, then closed her fingers around the brush. Her grip tightened with a kind of disbelief. No one's bought me something before, she said. It's just a brush. It's not, she said, because you thought about it while you weren't here. He didn't respond. He didn't need to. She turned the brush in her hands, then looked up at him. Kale, if someone knocks tomorrow and I get scared again, will you still want me here? Yes. What if I scream? You scream, he said. I come back in and deal with it. Her shoulders shook once. Then she steadied herself. I'll try not to, she whispered. You don't have to try, he answered. You just tell me. She stared at him, searching for any sign that he didn't mean it. When she didn't find one, she looked down again. The tension in the room eased just a little. Kyra climbed onto the bunk, pulling the blanket over her legs. She placed the hairbrush beside her pillow like something fragile. When Kale dimmed the lights, she didn't flinch this time. Before he stepped toward his room, her voice stopped him again. Kale, I didn't run today. I know, he said. You're not angry I was scared? No. Kyra lay back, eyes half-lidded. Then, maybe tomorrow I could try washing my hair. Properly, if the brush stays mine. It stays yours, Kale said. She closed her eyes. And this time, she slept within minutes. Not from exhaustion, but because for the first time, fear wasn't the only thing holding her in place. The apartment was still dark when Kale woke. Not the silent kind of dark that usually filled the early tier 3 mornings. This one carried a faint tremor, like someone shifting their weight carefully in the next room. He sat up, listening. A soft scrape sounded from the kitchenette. Not panicked, just tentative. He pulled on his shirt and stepped out. Kyra stood on her toes near the counter, trying to reach the water dispenser. Her hair, usually a tangled curtain, was brushed smooth for the first time, falling in a clean, white line down her back. She gripped the counter edge to steady herself. She froze the moment she heard him. I didn't wake you, she said, not sure if it was a question or an apology. You didn't. Kale walked past her and gently pulled the cup down so she wouldn't topple forward. You're up early. I wanted to wash my hair before you saw it. She lowered her gaze. I didn't want you to think I changed my mind. He filled the cup and set it in front of her. It looks good, he said simply. Kyra's shoulders relaxed by a fraction. She took a sip of water, holding the cup with both hands. The oversized tunic she wore, his old one, hung low on her arms, exposing her thin wrists. She had placed the hairbrush on the counter beside her, bristles up, as neatly as someone arranging a valuable item for display. I didn't hear anything last night, she said. No knocks. That's good, but I kept listening anyway. Kale nodded. That's normal. She hesitated. Will it always feel like that? For a while, he said. Then less. Then only when something truly matters. Kyra absorbed his answer without flinching. She had stopped asking him to soften his words. A faint chime came from a nearby unit, followed by muffled conversation through the corridor wall. Kyra stiffened immediately, steps shifting backward until she touched the corner of the counter. Kale stepped in front of her, not blocking her in, just adjusting his stance so she could see the door while he stood closer to it than she did. It's the neighbor, he said. She leaves early for transport duty. Kyra's breath came slower again. She slid onto one of the chairs at the small table and set the cup down. Are you leaving early today, too? No, normal hours. Will you tell me before you go? I will. She nodded once, satisfied. Kale began assembling breakfast. He warmed grain slices on the pan, the edges crisping to a light golden color. He cut a small packet of preserved meat strips, the smoky scent filling the kitchen. Kyra watched his movements closely, not hungry yet, just attentive, as if learning the steps was a way to stay present. You know, she said after a moment, you don't have to make extra food for me every morning. I do, Kale replied. How do you know I'll eat it? Because you're here. Kyra blinked at the answer, unsure how to respond. She pulled her knees up to the chair and sat curled, watching the meat strips sizzle. Kale, she asked quietly, do you think the person who knocked yesterday will come back? It's possible. She tightened her grip on the chair. But they won't get past me, Kale said. Kyra didn't smile, but a small part of her face softened, like tension releasing from a knot. He placed her plate on the table. Grain slices arranged neatly, 3 pieces of smoked meat, and a small cup of warm broth. Kyra studied it for a beat, then picked up a slice and took a cautious bite. The second bite came faster. You said, you might need a paper, she said between bites. A permission. For me to stay. Yes. What does that paper say? She asked. That I'm responsible for you. Responsible, she repeated, tasting the word like it was unfamiliar. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? It's a choice, Kale said. Mine. She lowered her eyes. Do you want that? Even if it makes things harder for you? Yes, Kale said. Kyra's fingers slowed on the grain slice. Her breath caught briefly before steadying. She didn't thank him. She didn't know how to. She just finished her plate quietly and drank the broth to the last swallow. After breakfast, Kale cleaned the pan while she rinsed her cup, still too short to reach the sink properly, but determined to help. He didn't correct her stance or adjust her grip. He let her try. When she set the cup down, she wiped her hands on the oversized tunic and asked, Can I come with you today? Not inside the building, just to the walkway. Why? I want to see where you go when you leave, she said. Then when you're late, I'll know where you are instead of guessing. He considered it. The walkway wasn't crowded this early, and the routine might calm her. Put on your jacket, he said. Kyra moved fast, almost too fast, pulling the off-white jacket over her tunic and tying the ribbon into her hair with clumsy fingers. She slid her feet into the soft indoor boots he bought her from the donation kiosk. She waited by the door. Kale checked the hall camera through his wristband. Clear. He opened the door. Kyra stepped out first, eyes scanning the corridor with the careful movements of someone who had lived too long in places where stepping wrong meant danger. But she kept her pace steady. As they walked, Kale noticed something small but important. She stayed close but not behind him. She walked slightly to his right, matching his stride. Is it far? She asked. 3 corridors down, he replied. Then a lift. She nodded and kept walking. A cleaning drone buzzed past. Not the surveillance-heavy type she feared, just a maintenance unit polishing floor panels. Kyra tensed, but didn't retreat. She lifted her chin toward him slightly. "Is this normal?" she asked. "Yes." She accepted that. When they reached the lift, Kyra stepped aside as the doors opened. A middle-aged woman wearing a transport uniform stepped out, glanced at Kale, then at Kyra. Her eyes narrowed. Curiosity, judgment, or something in between. Kyra froze. Kale shifted subtly, placing himself between them. "Morning," he said calmly to the woman. She hesitated, then nodded and moved on. Kyra exhaled quietly when she was gone. They reached the walkway, a long, open corridor with transparent panels overlooking the lower tiers. The early light washed the metal surfaces in a pale glow. Kyra stepped toward the rail, keeping both hands on it, her eyes widening as she looked down at the intersecting paths below. "You go all the way down there?" she asked. "Yes. Every day. Every day." She absorbed that, then looked up at him. "Then I'll wait for you from here," she said. "You don't have to." "I want to," she said. "So, I know you'll come back up this walkway. I'll see you before the door knocks again." Kale studied her for a moment. "All right," he said. Kyra nodded once, clearly, firmly, and looked back at the tiers below, her grip tightening on the rail. She wasn't running. She wasn't hiding. She was grounding herself in the path he walked, learning the place she now lived in, piece by piece. And for the first time since he found her in that dim corridor, Kyra stood not as someone waiting to disappear, but as someone preparing to stay. The walkway filled with quiet morning traffic by the time Kale returned. Not crowded. Tier 3 rarely was at this hour, but busy enough that he scanned faces out of habit. Kyra stood exactly where he had left her, small hands wrapped around the railing, eyes fixed on the path he had taken earlier. She straightened the moment she spotted him. "You came back the way you said," she said, trying to sound matter-of-fact, but her voice carried a thin tremor of relief. "I told you I would," Kale replied. He expected her to step back immediately and follow him home, but she didn't move. Instead, she kept her gaze on the lower levels for another moment, watching the transport carts glide by and the maintenance crews shift equipment from platform to platform. "I tried to learn the sounds," she said, "so I could tell when you were coming. Did you figure any of them out?" "Not yet," she admitted, "but I will." He nodded and gestured toward the corridor. She fell in a step beside him, adjusting the sleeves of her jacket to keep her hands warm. Her pace felt steadier today, still cautious, but no longer anchored by fear alone. When they reached the apartment door, Kyra's posture changed. She paused, examining the panel as if expecting a new mark or message. "It's the same as this morning," Kale said. "No alerts." "I know," she whispered. "I just needed to check." Inside, she kicked off her soft boots and set them neatly by the wall. She placed a hairbrush on the table, then hovered near the counter, unsure whether to sit or wait for him. Kale set his work bag down. "You stayed out here the whole time?" "Yes." She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "No one bothered me." "You saw a lot from that walkway." Kyra nodded. "People don't look up often. They only look forward or down. It makes it easy to stay unnoticed." "You don't have to stay unnoticed," Kale said. "Not anymore." Kyra absorbed the statement silently. He opened a storage compartment and took out a container of spiced broth and a small tray of meat slices. The savory smell spread quickly. Kyra moved closer as he began heating the meal. "I try to think about what my life is now," she said, choosing each word carefully. "Since yesterday. And I'm not hiding in a lane. I'm not sleeping behind pipes. I'm not running anymore." She paused, "But everything still feels temporary. Like someone will take it back if I breathe too loud." Kale stirred the broth. "Nothing is taken back just because you exist." Kyra's jaw tightened as if the sentence hit somewhere sensitive. "When you were gone," she said, "I kept thinking about the knock yesterday. And I told myself, if someone asks me to leave, I'll go before they make you pay for it." Kale set the spoon down. "Kyra," she kept going, voice steady but quiet. "I know what problems look like. I know when people start to look at someone like they want distance. I don't want that to happen to you because of me." He turned from the counter and faced her fully. You're not leaving because someone frowns at us, he said, or because a door knocks once, or because the colony likes easy answers. Kyra watched him closely, searching for hesitation. There's more, she said. Something I didn't tell you yesterday. What is it? When they knocked, wasn't just the sound. There was a shadow under the door. It stayed for a long time. Kale's expression hardened slightly, not in anger toward her, but toward the idea of someone lingering. Could you see their feet? No, just movement, like they leaned forward to listen. That information settled between them. Clear, concerning, but not enough to create panic. Next time, Kale said, if someone lingers, you call my name. Even if you think they'll hear you, you call anyway. Kyra nodded slowly. Okay. He finished heating the meal and placed a bowl in front of her. She took the spoon with both hands, letting the warmth rise against her face. Kale, she asked between small bites. What if that person comes back and asks about me directly? What will you say? That you're under my care. But without the paper, she said. Without permission. Then they can argue with me, Kale replied. Not with you. Kyra looked down at the broth, steam fogging her lashes. She stirred it absently before taking another sip. I'm trying to believe you, she said softly. My head understands it. My chest still doesn't. It will, Kale said. You've only had 2 days without running. She almost smiled, tiny, brief, unsure. A gentle knock sounded from outside. Kyra froze. Her spoon clattered against the bowl. Kale raised a hand, motioning her behind him. Not forcefully, just with steady direction. She moved instantly, pressing her back against the wall near the bunk, eyes wide, breath shallow. The second knock came. Light, polite. Kale approached the door, checked the panel. No alert, no override request, just a neighbor's signal. He cracked the door open. Jessa Morn stood outside, the same woman who had seen them the previous day in the lift corridor. She wore her transport jacket, holding a stack of courier slips. Evening, she said. Sorry to bother you. Kale kept his tone neutral. Everything all right? She cleared her throat. I heard a noise earlier. Thought maybe something fell. Just wanted to check. Behind Kale, Kyra pressed back into the shadow, barely breathing. Kale answered calmly. We're fine. Jessa hesitated, eyes glancing past his shoulder for a fraction of a second. Kale shifted slightly, blocking her line of sight without making the movement obvious. Good, she said at last. I'll let you get back to your night. He nodded and closed the door. Kyra sagged the moment the latch clicked, sliding to the floor. Her breath shook once, then steadied as Kale knelt beside her. She saw me yesterday, Kyra whispered. What if she knows? She doesn't, Kale said. And even if she suspects something, she didn't come here to cause trouble. Kyra lifted her head. Then why knock? To check, Kale said simply. Some people worry more than they show. Kyra absorbed that answer, unsure whether to trust it, but willing to try. He helped her stand. She gripped his sleeve for balance, then let go once she felt steady. Sit, Kale said. She sat at the table again, hands wrapped around the warm bowl. Kale, she said carefully, if I stay here, and if more people start noticing, will you still choose this? Yes. Without hesitation. Without hesitation. Kyra's throat tightened. She lifted the spoon again and ate slowly, each bite grounding her. When she finished, she wiped her mouth with the back of her hand and looked at him with a seriousness that felt older than her years. I want to stay, she said. Not because I'm scared outside, but because I don't want another door. I want this one. Kale's answer came without pause. Then this is the door you have. Kyra lowered her gaze, shoulders relaxing for the first time since the knock yesterday. She didn't thank him. She didn't need to. She simply breathed easier, as if the space between fear and safety had narrowed enough for her to stand in it without shaking. Tonight, she wouldn't sleep because exhaustion forced her. Tonight, she would sleep because she finally believed he would still be here in the morning light crept across the apartment floor in a pale line, reaching the edge of Kyra's bunk. She was already awake, sitting cross-legged with the blanket wrapped around her shoulders. Her hair was brushed smooth again, ribbon tied neatly. She watched the doorway as though preparing herself for whatever the day might bring. Kale stepped out of his room, fastening the clasp on his dark work shirt. He noticed her posture. Alert, steady, less tense than yesterday. You didn't sleep long, he said. I didn't need to, Kyra replied. I didn't feel like something bad was coming. That's new. She nodded once, quietly proud of it. He started preparing breakfast, laying out grain slices and the last of the smoked meat strips. Kyra slid off the bunk and moved to help without being asked. She handed him plates, reached for cups, and arranged them on the table with small, deliberate movements. How are you feeling? He asked. Better than yesterday, she said. I'm not waiting for another knock. Good, but I'm thinking about what you said, she added. About the paper. The permission. Cale paused. What about it? Kyra rested her hands on the table. If someone asks again who I am, I don't want you to keep saying it's temporary. He met her eyes. She didn't look away. Her shoulders were still narrow, still marked by fear from yesterday, but her voice held something different now, something steady. You want something official, Cale said. Kyra nodded slowly. If it means I won't be told to leave, if it means you don't get punished, if it means I belong somewhere. She didn't say with you, but the meaning sat between them. Cale considered his response carefully. She was young, but not fragile. Every choice he made shaped the next step of her life. I can go to the registry today, he said. On my break. Kyra straightened. Will they believe you? They'll test it, Cale replied. But I won't withdraw the request. Kyra absorbed this with a small inhale. Not fear, anticipation. I want to come, she said. You can't go inside the restricted halls, Cale said. But you can wait in the outer lobby. She hesitated. People will stare. They stare anyway, he said. Difference is you won't be alone. Kyra's eyes softened. He finished breakfast and set the plates down. They ate quietly, the warm food filling the room with simple routine. When they finished, Kyra wiped her mouth and stood, already reaching for her jacket. You want to go now? Cale asked. If we wait, she said, I'll think too much. He understood that. Thinking without action was a kind of trap. All right, he said. Put your boots on. Kyra did so, fumbling with one strap but refusing help. When she finished, she brushed off the front of her tunic, checked her hair ribbon again, then stepped toward the door. Cale scanned the corridor through the panel. Clear. He opened the door. Kyra stepped out first, just like the day before. They walked through the dim tier, 3 corridors, passing workers grabbing morning rations, maintenance crews carrying equipment crates, a pair of children running toward a lift. Kyra kept close, but not hiding. She watched the lights overhead, the platforms below, the people drifting past who didn't know her story or her name. When they reached the registry district, Kyra stopped. The building towered above the walkway, all white panels and clean edges. The front steps gleamed. A row of benches lined the outer lobby where citizens waited for processing or appeals. Kyra swallowed and tightened her grip on her jacket sleeves. Stay by the benches, Cale said. I'll be able to see you through the glass. And if someone talks to me, answer only if you want, he said. If not, just look at me. I'll come out. Kyra nodded once. They crossed the walkway together. Several people turned to look, some out of curiosity, some out of disapproval. Kyra held her ground. She didn't step behind Cale or shrink away. When they reached the door, Cale touched her shoulder lightly. I won't be long. I'll stay, she said. He went inside. Kyra sat on the nearest bench, small legs dangling above the floor. She kept her back straight, hands folded tightly in her lap. Through the glass, she watched Cale approach the counter, presenting his ID band and a request slip. 2 clerks leaned in to speak to him. One pointed toward the interior offices. Cale answered calmly, face unreadable. The clerks hesitated, then gave him a form. Kyra watched every movement. A few minutes passed. People drifted by the benches, workers, officials, families. One young woman paused in front of Kyra, eyebrows raised. Are you alone? She asked. Kyra shook her head. No. Where's your guardian? Kyra lifted her chin and pointed toward the window. The woman followed her gaze and saw Cale standing at the counter, speaking firmly with the clerk. Oh, the woman murmured, voice softening. All right then. She walked off without another word. Kyra exhaled slowly. Inside, Cale finished signing the form. The clerk scanned it, then directed him to a small chamber for biometric verification. Kale stepped inside without hesitation. Kyra leaned forward on the bench, watching the lights blink overhead. When Kale emerged, he was holding a small silver card, temporary documentation. He scanned the lobby until his eyes found her. Kyra stood immediately. He exited the building and walked toward her. The moment he reached her, she spoke. "Did they accept it?" "For now," Kale said. "It's the first step." Kyra stared at the card in his hand. "So, I'm really staying?" "You're staying." Her breath trembled once. Then she steadied it with effort. "Kale," she said softly, "can I ask something?" "Go ahead." "If they approve everything and I get the same mark as your band, does that mean—" She searched for the right phrase. "I won't have to wonder where I belong anymore." Kale didn't hesitate. "It means you belong with me." Kyra lowered her head. Her hands shook once before she clenched them together. He placed the silver card gently in her palms. "Keep this," Kale said. "It's temporary, but it's yours." Kyra held it against her chest. "Kale," she whispered, "does this mean you're not just watching me? You're choosing me." "I'm choosing you," he said. Her eyes filled, not with tears of fear, but something deeper, something she hadn't allowed herself to feel until now. Kale offered his hand. Kyra took it without hesitation. They walked back through Tier 3 together, hand in hand, not hiding, not rushing, not glancing over their shoulders. For the first time in her life, Kyra didn't walk behind anyone. She walked beside the person who had claimed her future and chosen to share his.